Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're basically playing detective. We are going to logically deconstruct this crushing, almost universal anxiety that, well, I'd bet real money you felt recently. It's that awful sinking feeling that you're somehow losing a race you never even signed up for. So let's just dive right into this, because feeling behind in life, it's pervasive, it's totally exhausting, and as we're about to see, it's completely structurally flawed.
So ask yourself, are you really behind? Or is your frantic brain just constantly comparing itself to some imaginary, perfectly calm, ultra-successful path that you feel like you're failing to walk? You know the visual. It's like a split screen in our heads. On one side, you've got your brain. It's red, it's cluttered with gears and ticking clocks, just completely frantic. And on the other side, there's this ideal path, a cool blue, steady, unbroken line of perfect progress. We literally punish ourselves because we aren't walking that cool blue line. But before we just blindly accept that guilt, we really need to examine the evidence.
Let me paint a really visceral picture for you. One you probably know way too well. It's 7 p.m. on a Sunday. The weekend is technically still happening, but emotionally, yeah, it's already over. You're sitting on the couch, maybe aimlessly scrolling on your phone, and it just barges into your mind without knocking. That heavy, sinking dread that you are fundamentally behind in life. You start running the numbers of your life in your head, looking at where you are versus where you should be. And when you run those numbers in that headspace, the math always, absolutely always, comes back with the same devastating answer. Insufficient. Not enough.
Section 1. Exposing the rigged equation.
We are going to bring some ruthless, investigative energy to this right now, because that feeling of inadequacy that crashes into you on Sunday nights, it's actually a deliberate lie. It's a rigged game designed to keep you anxious. See, we're all unconsciously running this rigged equation in our heads. We take our age, we subtract our perceived accomplishments, and then we divide that whole thing by some vague, massive weight of cultural expectations. But let's actually look at those variables. We've been taught there's this single shared timeline that everyone is moving on at the exact same speed. But guess what? That track isn't yours. You didn't build it. This imaginary standard was just cobbled together from your parents' expectations, from movies where the main character has their entire life perfectly figured out by 30, and by whichever one of your peers just happened to get there first. You're measuring yourself against a schedule you didn't write for a destination you never actually chose.
And this whole problem is heavily compounded by what we can call the comparison machine. On one side, we have your unedited footage. This includes every single 3 a.m. doubt, every messy mistake, and every single night you had a bowl of cereal for dinner just because you were too exhausted to cook. On the other side, we have their curated highlight reel, the absolute best, heavily filtered, cherry-picked moments of everyone else's lives. Comparing your raw, messy, full-length reality to someone else's edited highlights is an impossible, totally punishing standard. It is a mathematical certainty that you're going to feel behind when you run this comparison.
There's a quote that brilliantly illustrates the absolute absurdity of what we're doing to ourselves here. You've built a courtroom and tried your own case, and the key witness was a photograph of someone else's appetizer. Really think about that for a second. You are acting as the judge, the jury, and the executioner of your own life's worth. And the core evidence you're using to convict yourself of being a failure, it's literally a perfectly lit photo of a stranger's expensive dinner on social media. This harsh self-judgment isn't objective reality. It is essentially a hallucination, just dressed up as hard data.
Section 2. Verdict versus navigation data.
When you're stuck in that awful feeling of being behind, your brain starts running a highly targeted search for failure. It ignores absolutely everything good you've done and just laser focuses on the negative. Suddenly, a cluttered apartment or one unanswered email isn't just a minor chore anymore. Your brain views it as undeniable proof of a totally wasted life. We have to short-circuit that mental shortcut right now by drawing a really crucial distinction. We must distinguish between a verdict and data. A verdict is a final, permanent judgment, a sentence handed down. Data, on the other hand, is just raw material. It's a navigation tool. When you have a job interview that goes completely sideways, or when a relationship ends, that is not a permanent verdict on your worth as a human being. It's just data. It is just information telling you what didn't work, what you might need to adjust, and where you might steer next.
And taking this a step further, examining your failures as data actually gives you an incredible advantage. It gives you the skill of finding your way back. Think about it. The person who succeeds perfectly on their very first try, they never actually learn how to navigate. But the person who has failed, who has gotten totally lost, and who has actually examined that messy data, they develop a critical survival skill. They know exactly how to find their way back to the path when things get dark. By struggling, you're actually building a resilience that the so-called perfect timeline simply cannot provide.
Section 3. The paradox of feeling stuck. So, this brings us to a fascinating biological and psychological reality. Often, the feeling of being behind goes hand in hand with this suffocating feeling that you're entirely frozen in place, totally unable to move forward at all. But we need to completely flip our perception of this uncomfortable state, because most of us mistake feeling stuck for being stuck. Being stuck is an objective reality. It's a complete standstill. But feeling stuck? That's entirely different. Feeling stuck is often exactly what actual movement feels like from the inside. When you are growing, when you're deeply changing, it rarely feels like a smooth forward sprint. It feels confusing, it feels frustrating, and yeah, it feels exactly like you are trapped.
Let's think about the metaphor of the dark chrysalis. If you look at a caterpillar and a chrysalis from the outside, it looks like absolute zero progress. Nothing is happening. It looks totally stuck. But from the inside, every single cell is being fundamentally reorganized. The anxiety comes because there's no loading screen. There's no progress bar that pops up in your vision saying, life transformation 67% complete. There is just darkness and that terrifying feeling that you're spinning your wheels. But inside that dark, profound growth is actually happening.
So, if you're sitting there on a Sunday night feeling incredibly restless, I want to completely reassure you that restlessness is not a symptom of your failure. It is the engine of change. It's the internal friction required to push you out of your current state and into the very next phase of your life. It literally means your internal system is revving up for something new, not breaking down.
Section 4. Permission to stop the math.
Now, I know what some of you were thinking right now. I know the underlying fear here. You're worried that if you stop doing this rigged math, if you stop beating yourself up for being behind, you're just going to lose your edge. You're afraid that if you give up the guilt trip, you'll stop trying altogether and just, melt into the couch forever. Let's address that fear head on. It is totally valid to want to stay motivated, but guilt has never been a useful or sustainable fuel source. It just isn't. Holding on to anxiety, shame, and this constant sense of inadequacy is a terrible, highly toxic, and completely unsustainable way to fuel a life. It just burns you out. You do not need to punish yourself into making progress. Letting go of the rigged equation doesn't mean you're giving up. It means you're finally starting to use premium fuel instead of toxic sludge.
In fact, if you need reassurance about your drive, here it is. Feeling behind is the ultimate proof that you still care. People who have genuinely given up on life, people who have truly settled, they don't sit around frantically searching for reassurance. They definitely don't watch explainers like this one to figure out how to get unstuck. That ache you feel in your chest? That is just the sound of someone who absolutely refuses to settle. It is proof of your ambition, not your failure.
To bring this all together, I really want you to internalize this core argument. You were never behind. You've just been building something totally unique, in the dark, without a blueprint. You literally cannot be behind on a path that no one has ever walked before. All that time you spent feeling guilty, you were actually earning the right to feel okay. You've been doing the hard internal reorganization work this entire time. So I want to leave you with a provocative question to take with you into the rest of your week. What milestone on the track are you officially giving yourself permission to stop caring about? Is it a specific age you thought you'd be married by? Is it some job title you thought you'd have by now? Identify that rigged variable and just cross it out of your equation. You have the power to dismantle this trap. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep building in the dark, and I'll see you next time.